Mr. Speaker, educational assistants are invaluable resources for schools. They support teachers in daily activities and respond to the needs of students in a timely and appropriate manner. Last week, Manitobans were anxiously following the story of a 16-year-old boy with autism who went missing when he should have been in attendance at school. We understand that this student didn't have an educational assistant. Can the Premier tell the Legislature why an educational assistant would not be assigned to such a student with special needs, and if his minister has rejected applications for special needs funding?
Again, Mr. Speaker, I thank the member for the question. It is important that we have special needs supports in our schools. We've got legislation that provides for that. We've made funding announcements that well over inflation, Mr. Speaker, with our schools at the rate of economic growth in Manitoba. And that money has been allocated to school divisions, and they decide where they want to put their special assistants with respect to supporting students that have special needs. And we will always support them to do that, Mr. Speaker. If the member has a specific case with specific details, I'm sure the minister would like that information to be brought forward and it will be looked into. But I can assure him that our special needs funding has no caps on it. It is allocated on a basis of where the need is identified and acknowledged by all parties involved, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, in January 2012, the Auditor General released a report of the comprehensive assessment of special needs education in Manitoba. She found that today's NDP had failed to monitor for compliance. In other words, the Minister of Education was handing out money without checking to see that reasonable outcomes were being achieved.
That's not uncommon.
Sadly, this is a consistent practice with today's NDP government.
Absolutely.
Why was the government handing out money without monitoring to see if the required help was actually being delivered for children with special needs?
Mr. Speaker, in 2014-15, $154 million was provided for students with special needs in school, based on them meeting the criteria, based on them having a plan to address the needs of that special needs student. School division administrators are in charge of ensuring the resources go to where they're needed. If there's additional oversight required, we take any Auditor General's report seriously. We work with the school divisions to ensure that they're actually putting the resources where they're needed and to ensure that those special needs students get the support they require, including support from educational assistants, which have been playing an important part in our school divisions for many years, Mr. Speaker, and will play an important part for many years to come. I do have to say, though, Mr. Speaker, the member opposite himself voted against that increase in funding for our public schools, as have the members of the opposition, who actually cut funding to schools when they're in office, Mr. Speaker. We've increased it every year. We've been in office, and we've allocated it based on where the needs are, Mr. Speaker. And one of the needs that has to be addressed is special needs. And we've allocated, in last year's budget, $154 million for that, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable member for River Heights.
Mr. Speaker, I table data today to show that the Minister of Education rejects hundreds of applications for special needs support each year.
He's incompetent.
Each year, an average of about 425 applications that are carefully prepared with appropriate assessments and school support are rejected by this minister.
That's because he's
Cumulatively, over the last 11 years, this has meant 5,103 applications have been rejected. Why is the Premier and his government rejecting the effort of so many parents to obtain appropriate educational supports on behalf of their children who have special needs?
Mr. Speaker, I thank the member for the data. It indicates very clearly that there have been differing levels of demand for special needs funding. It's actually peaked in about 2007, 2008. The number of applications approved has been pretty consistent with respect to the number received versus the number approved, Mr. Speaker. His table shows that, and I asked him to take a look at it again. It's roughly the same across the various years, Mr. Speaker, but the point is this. There is no cap on special needs funding. No. It's based on criteria. That criteria is assessed by the officials. Money is allocated according to where it's needed, Mr. Speaker, and will continue to do that. The member himself and the members opposite took a different approach when they were in government. We've increased our funding to special needs students by 52% since we've been in office, Mr. Speaker. What was the approach of the members opposite when they were in office, Mr. Speaker? They actually cut education funding on a year-over-year basis, Mr. Speaker. 2%, 2.6%, 0%, 2%, and 0%. They actually shrunk the number of dollars available for education in Manitoba, Mr. Speaker. That does not only not help special needs students, it doesn't help any student, Mr. Speaker.